Hi, I'm Jonathan, a business coach for small business CEOs and the leadership team. The video that you're about to watch is the pivot window, and it's about why businesses drift and how you can stop it. If you're leading a team that's busy but unfocused, you're not alone. If the Monday morning scaries get you, you're also not alone. And this video will help you get around that. And I want to remind you that clarity, not hustle, is what creates the real momentum in businesses. And today I want to share a tactical framework for you to align your team and sharpen your direction. So let's get started. Grab a pen and step back into the role that only you can fill. This is the culmination of probably a decade worth of work, working with leaders at different levels, CEOs, presidents, other C-suite members that have directed the course of action for their companies. And I'm passionate about people who do things on purpose. And when you get to work alongside folks like that, I really enjoy working with people that they've taken a stab at doing something intentionally. And one of the things that I bumped into a while back while reading a book was a quote from Teddy Roosevelt uh, about citizenship, and it's quoted in a lot of different places. A lot of people have used it in different formats. It's actually why I have a lion behind me. Maggie pointed that out. One of my favorite visuals about leadership is that it's not clean and pretty, and we have a tendency to think about leadership as this thing that's a vaulted experience. But as the leader of a company or a division, whatever it is, an organization, it gets messy. And the image of a lion to me that is a leader, someone that has scars, that's dirty, but still maintains that leadership. That's very inspiring to me. And so this 27 minutes, I'm going to try to be right on the dot for you. It's unvarnished lessons from, like I said, a decade of observing and supporting and guiding leaders. Some of them built incredible teams, and they shaped their communities well. But honestly, some of them led to the demise of their companies, and they professed to love those companies dearly, and they didn't always act like that when it came down to it. So let's get started. If you're ready to leave a legacy and not just collect a paycheck, you're in the right room. I want to start by stating a truth. It can liberate you from any fears and doubts you might bring into the talk today. The next 18 months can determine the next 15 years of your company. Let me say that again. The next 18 months can and will determine your company's next 15 years. Some of you might hear that with a tint of regret, some with agreement based on positive experience, and some of you might be skeptical. No worries. I see you in whichever position you sit. I'm not here to unpack all of those positions, but rather I want to remind you, if you don't define success and what it looks like, your team, your company, or maybe your competitors will define it for you. So who am I and why are we doing this today? My name is Jonathan. I coach executives to lead better, build unstoppable teams, and drive sustainable change. I've studied dozens of leadership authors, thinkers, practitioners, and I've identified which principles form the core of the strengths holding great companies together. I built this framework to help CEOs and other executives create clarity and align their teams and avoid the number one cause of post-leadership change failure, and that is outcome drift. So this is a tactical framework to build brands, teams, and legacies that endure. For the purpose of today's time, instead of telling you what to do, I'm going to ask you to examine your team, your division, or your company. This series of questions is how I start all of my client engagements. And if you want to stop reacting to issues and start building a company that matters, you'll take some time today or this week to answer these questions honestly. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 3 questions to ask your leadership team after you ask yourself these to gauge whether or not you are in one of 3 seats. You're in drive, drift, or death. And these are tough positions to find yourself in. Drive is hard. Drift is hard. And the death spiral is all hard. So it's not like you get to escape the hard. It's you're going to choose which hard you want to be in. And it's initially about identifying what that looks like. So let's get right into it because I don't want to take any more time than is necessary for today to inspire you. Number 1 question. Do your people know where the company is headed? I'm not talking about the simple answers of the kinds of actions that the company does, who they serve, or other important factors. No, I'm asking you if your team knows where you want the company to be in the future. Another way of asking this question is, do you have a compelling and functional vision? A vision that is compelling is memorable, a clearly different position than what you are in today. You don't want to stay the same forever. We understand that if you are not progressing, you are stagnating, and stagnating is actually moving backwards in today's marketplace. No matter what kind of company you run, you're a part of, you cannot stay the same. Change is inevitable, and we make micro changes every single day that stack up to the kinds of companies and leaders that we will be in the future. A vision that is compelling and as well as functional, a functional vision is structured, digestible, identifiable. It takes the form that can be visualized by others, not just some vague idea once mentioned at a retreat offsite somewhere. If you don't think you have a vision, you do. I'm here to tell you, you already have one. You just haven't written it down necessarily. You make decisions based on how you want the future to happen every single time you make decisions. Sometimes that means you think about it, and so other times it's intuitive. Either way, you have a vision. The question is it compelling and is it functional? I meet with leaders all the time that tell me, Jonathan, I don't need a vision. I just do the thing. And I really push back on them because once you start to break it down and distill it into words and paragraphs and maybe even pictures, they have a vision. They've just never articulated it. So why do we need this kind of vision? Because without a vision of the future, leadership won't know how to make decisions that count for the long haul. Your team needs this vision to operate well. Just like you make decisions through your lens, you need the team going through the same checklist when they make decisions on your behalf. If they aren't, you'll have more messes and more fires. I have existed on teams before. I have worked side by side with incredible professionals that were not given a functional vision. And so what did we do? We all came up with our own vision of the future for that company. And that preloads stress and issues between the team when they're not all working on the same vision. Now, here's what it'll look like if you have this kind of vision or if you need to craft one. What to do about it, all right? You need to distill the ideas of what the company could become, who you employ, how the work feels, and the impact you can have on the community. These are questions that sometimes you already have answers for, and sometimes you've never addressed them specifically. But if you involve your team in creating this kind of vision and distilling it into actionable words and paragraphs, you're going to end up with something that can be changed and updated as it's necessary. But now you have a body of work to use as common language. And I say distill instead of create because most of the time you already have some of this put together. You just haven't put it down on the paper. So you can't just distill your ideas. You also need to gather data because you can't just lick your finger, stick it in the air and say, this is the direction I want to go. You have to have a starting point. So your data should be your current reality of your business health, your leadership team depth, and your company morale. These are important starting points to a business moving forward into the future. If you don't know where you've started, you can't make a roadmap. If you don't know where you're starting, you can't know what parts of the company need to be improved before you can hit the goals and the outcomes that you want. So you need to start with your current reality. That could be your finances. That could be just the level of tracking that you are or are not already doing. And a huge component about your data is whether or not you have other leaders identified on your team. If you have other leaders on your team, and I could argue you should be creating those leaders on your team, you will not have to do all of this work. This does not have to be a one-man band. It should be a collection, a team that is able to move forward. But if you've distilled your ideas, you've gathered the data, now you have a better picture of what's going on. Now you can set a direction. Setting a direction for the company. It's building a vision that is both aspirational, quantifiable, and most importantly, it needs to be meaningful. It's great if you put together a aspiration identity for your company for the future. If you can't actually put digits to that vision, you're in a heap of trouble. People need digits to put action to the vision. You need to make it meaningful with a purpose statement. We hear a lot about purposeful teams. We hear a lot about purpose-driven work, and this is never going away. The generations that follow us have higher levels of desire for purposeful work than those that are already in the workforce today. If you thought we millennials were inspired to do this, just take a gander at Gen Alpha and the folks coming with it behind them. They have higher levels of meaning for their work, or else they just aren't going to work. So you need to write this statement in present tense. That means I am living in it in the future. I can visualize what it's like for my company to be in the future, 15 years down the road. This is the kind of people we hire. This is the kind of work that we're accomplishing. And this is the kind of thing that we are now trying to chase in the future. So that's question number one. Does your company know where you are headed? But what's next? Leadership question number two. If all the leaders disappeared, would everyone else know what to do? This is a litmus test to whether or not your vision has been put into actionable words. If all the leaderships disappeared, they are not there to make the decisions and to make commands. This could look like a vacation or a catastrophe. If for some reason all the paid decision makers are gone, will everyone else know what to do that day? This is what assessors are looking for when a company is being considered for funding, for acquisition, and potential partnership. They want to know if the information has passed the top levels into the line workers, those folks that are hand to hand with your customers and with your clients. A strong company has strong leaders, but an even stronger company knows how to take action at lower levels in the company. Another way of asking this is, do you have an actionable mission? Now, okay, so we've introduced vision and now mission. There are a lot of thought leaders that decide how to craft a vision, a mission, maybe even other terms, but I make mission statements actionable. So that is an aspiration mission, but it needs to be clear. It needs to have specific and measurable components. It needs to have digits, deadlines, and stakes. Aspirational missions can be taken out of one company and placed onto another company and mean the exact same thing. That's not what we're trying to talk about. Visions might be less concrete, but your mission had better be concrete. When I teach mission statements, we actually put a deadline on there. And you say, Sheeley, what's the deadline for? If you talk to anyone who's in the military, if they get an assignment, it has a deadline. They know when they need to be done with that work. They know the parameters. And if your team doesn't know the parameters for their work, they are not inspired to get that work done. We all love to be inspired. And we all would prefer to have discipline, but the discipline of giving inspiration is called a deadline. If you can't see your team, your budget, and your vision in your mission statement, neither can your team. And you're going to lose them or lose out because of it. So, without a mission to accomplish, your team doesn't know what they're doing today. But when you add specific metrics to accomplish, the team begins to build the same intuition that you have. They'll know the reason why the deadline was set. And ultimately, they'll create better projects and better solutions than you could have by yourself because they know where they're headed and what it looks like to get there because they invested in the same outcomes that you decided. You didn't go away and just deliver from Mount Sinai some 10 commandments that's nebulous. No, they were a part of the process. They were a part of creating and crafting the strategy, not just the outcome. So if you've never done this before, it's not actually hard. You just need to do these three things with your leadership team. Number one, you need to break down the vision into milestones and ask what order those milestones might need to be accomplished. Some projects may fall outside of those milestones, but they all ought to be leading towards that vision of the future. But the best work that we do will not stress us the same way that unintentional work stresses us out. When we fall prey to whatever emails are coming in and the client conversations that are just seeming to be basket cases and fires, the issue is that you haven't provided space for the rest of your team to be proactively working. They will not, you and your team will not be able to escape customer service issues. But if you have a desire and you have identifiable ways of crafting time to get ahead and not just maintain, you will be able to work through those customer service issues. But the vision has to have milestones or else no one will work at it because they just feel overwhelmed with where they need to be in 10 or 15 years. That's why we set a 2 or 3 year mission. So number one, you create milestones. Number two, you need to determine the essentials. This is where it gets tricky with your team because everyone on your team will have different priorities on what comes first. Tech will want to spend money. Accounting will want to save money. All of the teams will want to have different priorities. And this is where your leadership comes in very important in this time because you have to determine which components must remain and if any, some might need to be eliminated. To be able to accomplish everything, you will accomplish nothing. You have to choose what comes first. That's where these milestones being identified will help you with what to do today, tomorrow, next quarter, next year. And then number three, it doesn't matter if you break them into milestones and it doesn't matter if you determine what has to remain. If you don't connect your short-term mission to the long-term impact of the vision, your team will not rally around what they are supposed to do. But if you put people in the room together and they have all of these things to accomplish because they know what's coming down the road, they will work like their butts are on fire. There's data that suggests anything further out than 3 or 4 years is significantly harder to process than 2 or 3 years. So with that in mind, take the vision, which should be somewhat aspirational and audacious, see what pillars you can build first. And when you've done that, you communicate it to the team over and over and over again, and they'll tell you which things must go and which one of them needs support. They're probably already asking for that support, and now they have permission because they know they've connected their mission to the long-term vision. You need to connect their Tuesday to the vision if you want them to succeed. And what kind of transformation they go through will be incredible. So if you have a vision and you have a mission, you need to ask yourself the last question. Can everyone on the team define success for your company? Now, you might think that's slightly redundant because we've already addressed the long term, the strategy, the plans. But the question is, what ultimately looks like success? And admittedly, this is where human error rears its head and it can slow your company down. This is what we talk about with drift. If you've gone through all the work to put your words to your vision and logically begun to chip away at that short term mission with the outcomes, Your team will need reminders and lots of them. So another way of thinking about this component is, do you have a plan to validate your success? I promise you, your team wants to be a successful team. They want to win at work. They want their team to be recognized for their effort. So how will you determine whether it's working or not? My argument is you really need to build the infrastructure of success into your team. And what does that look like? Without a built-in system for building, assessing, and adjusting, neither your vision nor your mission will be realized, because a vision and a mission is not done once you've written the first draft. It continually evolves. Everything around you is always changing as well. And so you need a process built into accomplishment to analyze and to adjust. When it comes to success, no one likes to be left out. No team wants to be on the sidelines. And we've all sat through those presentations that were full of fluff because they wanted to be seen as successful. Whether it's a lack of data or a reliance on the wrong metrics, you need to nip this in the bud by pre-establishing what success will look like. And you have to back your people when they ask for the resources to do just that. You can't tell them to track the untraceable. So find ways to identify metrics that mean something. Here are a couple of suggestions for what I have for this to work. Okay, structure your business operations around the mission and vision. You need to align those operations so that people know that what they're doing is meaningful. You can't have them out on tangents and say it's a part of the process, it's a part of the brand. If you can't connect it to the vision and mission, it's out. You also need to calculate your investment, your expenses, and impact through the lens of what the impact internally and externally will be. You can have an external impact desired, but what is it going to cost your team internally? So you need to set up those tests to warn you of the issues that are coming. Those red flag tests give you the opportunity to prevent the problem instead of have to react to the problem. Number 3 here, empower everyone on the team to solve the problems. One of my favorite case studies is the Toyota company who installed a red button on the assembly line. Anyone in the plant could hit the button and everything would stop until they could fix the problem. And it seems counterintuitive because we want to have momentum and we want to have energy moving forward. But if something's going wrong, you don't want to have to fix it 3,000 more times before you get to the bottom of it. Stop production and let everyone else tell you when there are issues. And you can do this, you can do all of this in systems by building your discipline muscles, okay? That means meetings, reports, communications need to be a discipline and not just the point of the process, okay? We want to know what's going to happen after the report. We want to know what the purpose of the meeting is before and after, not just while we're in it. It's not a performative function. It's a discipline towards the achievement of the mission and of the vision. Systems are important, and systems can only be structured if you have a mission and vision. Some of the highest performing companies have excellent systems headed in all different directions, and so they never accomplish anything but what they're looking for in that particular day. So my question for you today is, what will your legacy be? Will you be remembered as the leader who kept everything going okay? Or will you be the one who made the pivot at just the right time? The timing of your pivot is crucial because there's never been a better day than today to pivot out of drifting, out of the death spiral of your company into getting on track and making a difference in what things happen every single day. Fortune favors the decisive, not the strategic. People who do it and they fail and they rewrite the story, and after they fail, they learn, they move forward. Fortune favors businesses and companies and organizations that have a bias towards action with the lens of a vision and a mission. There's never a perfect time for this stuff. One of the biggest objections that I hear when people want to put together a vision and a mission is they don't have time. Well, I'll make the argument you don't not have the time. You must do this sooner rather than later if you want to get ahead and not just drift. You'll either find the time to work ahead or you'll always be 10 steps behind of everyone else doing this work. So carve it out. If you have time for vacation with the company as a company, you have time for this discipline. If you have time for Top Golf, you have time for this. If you have time for a bowling activity as a company, you have time for this. My argument is not because I want to see things happen haphazardly or quickly. No, I just know the cost that you will spend by not doing this is astronomical. You lose people, you lose discipline, you lose your company by small chunks, not in big modes. All right. So that is how you'll be remembered. I have a special invitation for you to get to work with this work on purpose. Work on purpose is not accidental. It takes intentionality. And so I've structured an offer for those that want to do this well and in advance. It's called the Leadership Reset Cohort. 60 to 100 days of private coaching to experience the gain in clarity, align your focus, and build momentum. In this cohort, I'll offer 5 private coaching sessions, a leadership diagnostic set of resources so that you can work through your specific kind of company and create on the back end a custom 90-day action plan of moving forward on the things that matter the most. All of my clients get weekly accountability touch points, whether it's synchronously or asynchronously, on what's working, what's not, what will we continue, and what will we get rid of. You'll get an access to an entire resource library of pivot resources. I have some of my partners have spoken into this resource deck on specific solutions like customer service journeys and determining your vision and mission in a specific way for nonprofits and putting together resources that your brand is recognizable. There are lots of resources at your disposal if you join this cohort. And finally, at the last, after we're done with our 5 coaching sessions, we'll do a final strategy debrief and look through how do you maintain this momentum even after you've gone through the reset cohort. The reset cohort is not intended to be a fix-it-all. It is intended to be a shock to your system. And that's why I've priced it low. I want it to be so dumb low that you couldn't say no to it. Okay. For just $550, it's 100 days of high level coaching. Now I have this valued at almost $5,000 with all the resources that I put together into it, but we're offering it right now for the next week or two for just $550. And I have about 9 spots left that I'd love to get people into because I want to see these things work. Now, my purpose behind my work is because I know that when leadership takes hold, not only does the leader exist in a better way at work, but his or her team shows up better. The company ends up operating better. And you know what ultimately happens? Their families and their communities end up having a better life because of it. It's not that we want this because we want the extra cash. We don't want awesome businesses just because we want awesome businesses and awards. It's because when our families say, yeah, my spouse, my dad, my mom, they work at an awesome company, that's mission success for me because communities are better when leaders are great at their job. And that, my folks, is the pivot. You don't have to shrink and drift and die in this market. You can actually get ahead. You can have way better success in your company and with your team. And I want to be a part of that process. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, I will stick around for a few minutes and we can chat, or we can catch you on the next time we bump into each other. Thank you and have a great one.